Stop worrying about homework and start learning with confidence. This is Ask Learn. Complete help for every subject. Like, share, subscribe for daily learning videos.
All right, so we're going to be section number 49 of Tro's Chemistry, Structure and Properties, second edition textbook. And in this particular question, we've been given two and asked if these two samples obey the law of definite proportions. Essentially, what this means is that do these two samples, are they consistent with the number of particles or molecules that they contain? So essentially what we have to do here is calculate the mass ratio of each of these samples. And if these two ratios agree with each other, then we can say that these two samples obey the law of definite proportions. But if these two samples have different mass proportions, that is the mass proportion of carbon and chlorine, that these samples do not law of definite proportions. So, like I said, one sample here, which is sample 1, contains about 38.9 grams of carbon and 448 grams of chlorine. So what we have to do is find out the ratio of carbon to chlorine or chlorine to carbon. To do is to take and divide by the smaller number. So in essence, what's going to happen here is that we're going to say that the mass ratio of chlorine to carbon in sample 1 is going to be given by the mass of chlorine divided by the mass of carbon, which in this case ends up being 448 grams of chlorine to 38.9 grams of carbon. This, when solved, gives us approximately 11.5. So that's the mass ratio, right? So we can say that there's 11 times more chlorine than carbon. So we can say this ratio is 11.5 is to 1, right? Of chlorine to carbon. So for sample 2, we do this just for the same approach we did for sample 1. We find the mass ratio, and that is 134 grams of chlorine to 14.8 grams of carbon. This gives us approximately 9.05, which means that we have 9.05 more times chlorine than we do of carbon. So the ratio is 9.05 is to 1 of chlorine to carbon. And given that these two ratios do not match each other, we can say that these two samples, so sample 1 and sample 2 do not obey the law of definite proportions. So do not obey the law of definite proportions. That's it.